Howdy y'all, Kaloth here. In the July 2023 Road Ahead, it was announced that we're getting a new raid in Galaxy of Heroes, the Endor Raid, where we're going to take teams of 3 characters per team and chase after Imperial Scout Troopers on speeder bikes. We know a lot about this raid, so in this video I'd like to go into what we know so far and how you can prepare for it. Before we get into that, I do want to quickly say the support on this channel so far has been great. I've been doing this for almost a month now, so this is still a very new channel that I intend to grow. You can help me out by doing the normal things. You know how YouTube works. Like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you like, let me know what you don't like. One thing I don't like is YouTubers asking for likes and dislikes, but apparently that's how YouTube works. I've been told by many people now that that's how this works, so I'm going to try to not stick on that too much in future videos, but I just want to say thank you if you've been engaging so far, and if you're a new viewer, pop in, let me know how you found me and kind of what you think of the content. So, all that said, let's get into this. So here we are in the game. I want to talk about the units that we have announced for the Endor Rebel Raid. Well, not really a Rebel Raid, actually, because I guess we do have Imperial Troopers, the Endor Raid. And then talk about kind of how we can approach preparing for that so it doesn't catch us unaware when we get to that point. So we've got several kind of requirements here that you can group up in different categories. First of all, we just have Rebels. Admiral Akbar, Han Solo, Hera Syndulla, and Wedge Antilles all are announced to be intended for use in that raid. Wedge, of course, is needed for Jedi Master Luke. Hera is needed for Profundity. Admiral Akbar is actually a requirement for the new Leia Organa GL. And Han Solo, outside of being just a fantastic character, is needed for Jedi Master Luke and Jabba the Hutt. So, a lot of great value there. Moving down, we've got Jedi Knight Luke and some of his requirements, right? We've got Jedi Knight Luke himself, and then C-3PO, Chewbacca, and Lando Calrissian all are required for Jedi Knight Luke, thus baked into the requirements for Jedi Master Luke and Jabba. On top of that, Lando is also needed for Leia Organa, which makes Lando one of the most high-value relics that you can put in the game. Putting a Relic 5 on Lando will be a prerequisite for 3 Galactic Legends in one strike, which is nice. Moving down further, we've got Ewoks, and we have literally all Ewoks prior to Princess Kneesaa already announced as being usable in the raid, right? Of course, Wicket is required at Relic 3 for Leia. We don't know anything about these other Ewoks. We don't know if any of them are going to be required. I would not be surprised to see something like a Chief Chirpa required at Relics for GL Leia. We'll have to see how that pans out, but every Ewok before Kneesaa. And then finally we have Imperial Troopers. We've got General Veers, Colonel Stark, Admiral Piett, Stormtrooper, and Moff Gideon. We have Iden Versio, Death Trooper, Shore Trooper, Magma Trooper, and Range Trooper. Now, with the exception maybe of Ewoks, and even that is up in the air with Princess Kneesaa, all of these characters are very worth farming, very worth relicking. But if you take a look at my relics on these, now I don't have some things like, I don't have a Relic Hera because I don't have Profundity on this account. A lot of people do. But Ewoks, not a lot of people have Relic Ewoks, right? Up until Kneesaa, there wasn't too much reason to Relic Ewoks. Imperial Troopers are a fantastic team. There's plenty of reason to Relic them. But you'll notice I don't have them reliced unless they are requirements for, you know, Sith Eternal Emperor or Executor. I just have not had the bandwidth to go and add relics to those if they're not required for something. So we all have, unless you are a big spender, unless you're somebody who, you know, frequently spends a lot of money on the game, or unless you're somebody who's been established for years, has been pulling in, you know, top arena showings, top fleet arena showings, you know, high Kyber GAC showings, and are great at managing your resources and hoarding your resources, you probably have a list of luxury relics, right? We all have that. Luxury relics, how I would define it, they're those characters that, man, they're great characters. You'd love to bring them to relics, but they don't lead into anything specific. And so a lot of times, if you're like me, those get put on a priority list that's hard to get to. And let's face it, with Imperial Troopers, a low gear Iden can actually still do quite a bit of work. Even in Kyber 3, I've gotten holds with that low gear 5-star Iden. Those low relics on Veers, Stark, and Piet, combine that with the Gear 12 Gideon, and my Dark Trooper is Gear 10, I think. And they do a ton of work. Again, even in low Kyber. In Kyber 3, I constantly get use out of those low gear Imperial Troopers on offense. So long as you outspeed the opponent at the start, you can get the turn meter train rolling, and they don't need a lot of relics. So I haven't invested a lot of relics in these. Now is an opportunity. If you are one of those players like me who has that luxury relic list, these guys just moved, maybe not towards the top of that list, but they at least moved higher, right? You can put relics on these guys without feeling like you are diverting from something, right? They are, well, for instance, one of my luxury relics for a long time was Jolie Bindo. I recently took Jolie to Relic 5, even though he's not required for anything at that level. You know, he's required to unlock Jedi Knight Revan, but at low gear. He's not required at anything at relics, but with a crate raid, him having the Old Republic tag, putting him to R5 helped me increase my crate raid score, so I didn't feel so bad about that. So there are a lot of problems with what we know about the Endor Raid right now, and we'll talk about that in another video. But one of the good things is these are characters that are probably on, especially these Imperial Troopers, that are very possibly on people's luxury relic list, where you've always wanted to go in and relic them, and you haven't really had the bandwidth to do so yet. So this gives you an opportunity to do that. And these are fantastic teams. Iden Versio is a fantastic team in GAC. Veers lead Imperial Troopers, great team. Moff Gideon is just straight up plug and play viable. Now, one thing to note here, one of the best Imperial Troopers in the game, Dark Trooper, is not allowed here, and I don't think that's an oversight. I do think that's probably intentional, that they don't want Dark Troopers in the Endor Raid. But nevertheless, these characters, if they have been on your list of luxury relics, you have an opportunity now to invest in them a little bit easier, right? A little bit without having to worry about, well, you know, am I sidetracking myself from my current farms, because they're going to lead into another thing. But another thing to take a note of here is that the raid teams are going to be 3-person teams. If we go over to our announcement here, and we just take a look at this real quick. So here are our raid characters, but if we scroll up, it says you'll be asked to bring 3 characters from the list below. These characters will have their abilities changed for the raid. There'll be 8 new abilities, a unique basic shared by all characters, and 7 special abilities that characters will get 1 or 2 of based on their current abilities and their kits. So you're going to have a 3-person team, right? And in that 3-person team, they're going to have custom abilities. Everybody's going to have the same basic, and then you're going to have 1 or 2 specials based on your kit. We don't know what that means, right? We don't know if that means it's going to be based on that character's role. For instance, Veers, Stark, and Piet, I'm fairly certain, are all support, right? Veers is support, Stark is support, and Piet is support. Yeah, they're all support. So if it's based on their role, maybe you're going to want 1 support, 1 attacker, and 1 tank, maybe. I don't know. We need more information about that. So it's hard to plan around that. But a lot of these are, if you're wanting to get prepped for Endor, if you're farming GL Leia anyway, a lot of this is good investment. By the way, I want to point out, Iden Versio, I've just started working on really trying to star her. She's, again, another luxury character that she does everything I need her to do at those low gear points yet, so I've been kind of slow farming her. I am now refreshing her node because I have a sneaking suspicion that she may be a GLA requirement. She was an Imperial Trooper who fought on Endor, so it's possible, right? But if you are looking to get prepared for Endor, investing in these characters is not a bad way to go. Something else I want to point out here. I've got another list here. Unannounced characters, right? Leia Organa actually was not technically on the list that they said in the Road Ahead. But if you go back and read the Road Ahead, one thing it specifically says is that Leia will be kind of a featured unit like Jabba was in the Crate Raid. So even though they didn't have her on the list, almost certainly Leia Organa will be usable. Additionally, I don't see any reason to think that Captain Rex, Princess Nisa, and Captain Drogon, who, again, I've got Scarif Rebel Pathfinder as a placeholder here, I don't see any reason to think that those won't be required, or won't be in the list of available units in Endor. So I'm expecting those as well. And maybe a couple more additions before we get to that point. But if you are somebody, if you've got JML, I've got these characters at the relic levels they are for JML. If you're somebody who has Jabba, you have at least Luke, 3PO, Chewbacca, Lando, and Han. If you have Profundity, you have Hera. Admiral Akbar has always been kind of a luxury relic, but again, he's needed for Leia. So, how I am approaching this, I'm going to be taking Akbar to Relic 3 after I finish Profundity. So I'm working on Profundity right now. Once I finish Profundity, which I'm guessing will be late August, I'm going to take Akbar to Relic 3 because I'm fairly certain that how my account is going to shift after Profundity is I'm going to go for GL Leia. As I'm going for Profundity, I'm going to have a Relic 5 Hera. My plan with all these old Ewoks, of course Wicket I'll take to Relic 3 as well for Leia, but with all the other Ewoks, I plan on going ahead and taking them to Gear 12. That's not a difficult thing to do. The Crate Raid currency has made gearing up to Gear 12, especially on older characters that don't have required Chirotechs before their finisher, it's made that much easier. So that's what I plan to do with all these guys. I plan to take them all to Gear 12. Same with my Imperial Troopers. I plan to take them to Gear 12. I will probably, depending on how the raid shakes out, I won't do this prior to the raid, but I will be looking at taking Veers and Stark to Relic 5, along with two others, probably Gideon, and then honestly, probably Dark Trooper, right? Even though Dark Trooper is not going to be part of the raid, I'm going to use this opportunity. Hey, I'm going to need to be gearing his other team, the rest of his team up anyway. Might as well add him to the list, even though he's a luxury, quote-unquote, because it's a good opportunity to do that. And then Aiden's team I will probably have to Gear 12, unless, of course, Aiden is required for Leia. And then these, as I intend to go for Leia after Profundity, so I'll have all these. But this looks like a very approachable raid, at least from a requirement standpoint. If you're an established player, chances are you have Jedi Knight Luke. Chances are you have Jedi Master Luke, or Jabba, or both, which gets you a lot of these, right? If you have Executor, if you have Sith Eternal Emperor, you have some of those Imperial Troopers. So this is going to be pretty approachable, ideally. Hopefully, we'll see how it actually works in practice. The one thing I'd keep in mind is that for most players, you don't need everything here relicked, right? If you look at how you're approaching Crate right now, I would think that that's fairly safe to assume as a guide. Have one or two big relic teams and then a couple of lower gear teams. The only caveat to that is that Raid requires teams of 5. Endor Raid is going to require teams of 3. So, it's going to be easier to get all of your teams at relics because of that 3 unit requirement instead of 5 unit requirement, but also it's probably going to mean that CG is going to tune it a little tighter than Crate was. So all that is speculation. We don't know where that's going to go, but those are just some kind of unfiltered thoughts I have on what the Endor Raid is going to need and how to approach it. How are you approaching it? Are you making any plans yet? Are you kind of waiting until we have more information? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and may the Force be with you.